so I don't have to do, I'm used to using this platform, but I'm used to having to do all the work, but you're
You don't
going
have
to
to
do all
do
the work.
anything. You don't
Okay.
have to do anything.
I just have to
I'll,
talk.
you just have to talk.
Yeah.
I'll read your bio and then we can dive in.
Okay.
I'll introduce you, then read your bio. All right. So 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. All right, guys, welcome back to the special series of the Trauma Therapist Podcast. I am very excited this morning to be joined by Dr. Janina Fisher. Janina, welcome.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
All right. So Janina is a licensed clinical psychologist and instructor at the Trauma Center, an outpatient clinic and research center founded by Bessel van der Kolk. Known for her expertise as both a therapist and consultant, Janina is also past president of the New England Society for the Treatment of Trauma and Dissociation and EMDR International Association credit provider and a faculty member of the Sensorimotor Psychotherapy Institute and a former instructor at Harvard Medical School. Janina's recent book is titled Healing the Fragmented Selves of Trauma Survivors. Again, Janina, welcome.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
So when I started putting this together, I mean, this just happened. For obvious reasons, and I put a query out to the people in my community. You were at the top of the list. People wanted to hear from. So let me just open it up. What the heck is going on?
We're hiding out in our houses because there's a monster on the loose. And the thing that's so hard is I'm used to working with people's past traumatic experiences.
Right.
And now we have this Godzilla roaming our community and our world. And it's discombobulating and frightening on so many levels.
And that's exactly what it feels like. It feels like it's this monster on the loose.
Yeah, yeah.
There's a lot that there's certain things that we can do in our homes, but for me, you hit it on the head. It feels like there's something out there that I can't control.
Absolutely, which is so true. We can control how we try to keep ourselves safe, but we can't control the Godzilla. And then on top of that, I just got an email a few minutes ago from a former client saying, working at home is exhausting. Who knew that having to adjust to to online work of all kinds, particularly psychotherapy online for people who've never done that.
Right.
It's all, trying to get provisions in. I just put in a vitamin order just before we started because there's it's like wartime, right?
Mm-hmm.
We've got to make sure that we have what we need for this potential. Well, it's not a potential crisis. It is a crisis, but just in case Godzilla knocks on our doors.
Mm-hmm. So to give us some context here, let's start kind of from kind of a macro level, if you will, and then narrow it down to a more personal or individual level. What are your thoughts on how this is impacting us globally, what it means in terms of trauma, et cetera? Let's start there.
Well, again, we all may feel traumatized, whatever our objective level of risk. But I'm thinking of my colleagues in Italy. I have a very, very close group of colleagues there, and someone just told me yesterday that literally they can't bury the bodies fast enough. So Italians are being exposed not just to this fear of the virus, but to the fear of their fellow citizens, but also to these very traumatic images. So, depending on how we all fare in this crisis, we were exposed to the sense of threat. That's just all of us. Some of us who are older or who have health problems have a even greater sense of threat, and we know that trauma isn't just about when something happens. It's also the anticipation of threat. It's the objective sense of risk to life that we're all taking every day. So that's going to affect us. On top of that, this is something I often do just to kind of regulate my own nervous system. When we are frightened, when we're anxious, when we're in a emergency stress response, the immune system is suppressed. So the more we can try to live in the present moment, a moment at a time, a day at a time, an hour at a time, the more we bring calm to the body, the more we're going to support our immune systems. So that, I think, is a very important thing we can all do. In addition to all the things that we're being told that we can do. So, at a macro level, the sense of threat, right, is right here, right now. Also, there's this sense of threat. What's going to happen when Godzilla finally weakens and dies out?
Right.
And what's going to happen to our economy? What's going to happen to people who, even today, people who make their living working hourly? I was thinking today about the woman who cleans my house, whom I can't let in at the moment, and thinking maybe I should send her a payment, because it feels as if the risk to the welfare of people at all levels of society is so high.
So there's a lot, obviously you're talking about a lot of perceived threat and actual threat and risk. And one of the things I'm kind of taking away from what you're saying is the importance of living moment by moment, trying to do that moment by moment to help our immune system.
Right. And trying not to go to think into the future. Because thinking into the future just brings up more fear. And so, as I keep saying to myself, you can't go there, because your immune system needs all your support right now.
In terms of an opportunity, I mean, it sounds almost flippant to say or to ask, is there an opportunity for all of us, and even more specifically for those who work, in the trauma field amidst all of this? Do you think there's any kind of an opportunity here to step up, to learn, to practice differently, or what?
Well, we all do have to practice differently. That's just a given. Whether the trauma field will find a gift hidden in this crisis is unclear. But so many people are talking about the way in which being sequestered with their families, or as we say in California, sheltering in place with your loved ones, is creating an opportunity for coming together as a family. I've had long text conversations with a group of collegial friends in Washington, D.C. in the last few days. We're checking in with each other, something that we ordinarily wouldn't have done if life were going ahead normally. There's a sense that that just people in the community are more concerned about each other.
Right.
And and I think that's going to benefit us without question. That this coming together for a common purpose of saving our lives, what could be a more important reason?
Right.
Because we can't do it alone.
So basically, that was a stupid question. There of course there's opportunities. They're all around us,
Yeah.
right?
But and here's another opportunity. My friends in DC, all very, very, very gifted expert trauma therapists, they've all been freaking out about managing all this technology, right? It's enough to show up for your clients. Now you have to worry about the technology.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And so that's a whole other level of anxiety. And I think, and actually, I think from what I hear, clients are just so happy to have the contact, have a way to continue.
Right.
And there isn't nobody's complaining, why do I have to see you remotely?
Right. Right. You talked about this sudden experience of having, working with people's trauma or perceived experience of the trauma right now, kind of in the moment, as opposed to a past trauma. Talk a little bit about what that means, are there challenges to that, how that works differently, and so forth.
Well, it was a question that often gets raised in any case. For instance, I have child therapist colleagues who often talk about, how do I help the child go back to the unsafe situation? Because they aren't necessarily kids who are safe now. And that's the thing, you can't process trauma if the trauma isn't over, right? Trauma has to be over. We have to be safe now in order to resolve the past. So for children, for people living in unsafe neighborhoods, communities, families, um, in domestic violence situations, it's been an issue for many years. You can't help a client get vulnerable and then say, go back out into this dangerous world you live in. So, I've thought for years that our field's emphasis on getting to the vulnerability or going deep is actually not, it's that it isn't the answer. That actually what we have to help people do is be here now, to adapt to their circumstances now, to have a different relationship to the trauma. And in some cases, that means helping people to resource themselves rather than helping them to touch into their vulnerability. So right now, none of us needs to be more vulnerable. But that's been true for many, many, many groups of clients for many years.
Excuse me. So why the emphasis, why the importance on quote unquote going deep or becoming vulnerable?
I think we got that from Freud. I think that, I always say we're all children of Freud. It's like, he's the common ancestor in the psychotherapy field. Obviously, over the many, many decades since Freud, other camps have developed CBT, lots and lots of different methods, but he is the common ancestor. because psychotherapy really didn't exist until Freud. And most psychotherapy training still teaches the talking cure. And that means that we ask people to free associate, to notice what's happening inside them, to remember the past. And we don't ask them to remember their happiest moments. We ask them to remember terrible moments. And I think it's just been accepted. It's like, for centuries we accepted that the world was flat, only to find out it was actually round.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just been a given in the mental health world that that we have to help people go deep.
And so this, the alternative in a sense, or another way of being present. Talk about that. What does that look like when you're working with someone? I really love this idea here.
Well, it's really thinking about what does this person need today? Because trauma resolution, whatever method we're talking about, involves changing the relationship to memory. And whether that's done using exposure with EMDR, psychoanalysis, whatever method it is. My specialty is sensorimotor psychotherapy and ego state or parts work. So, of course, my tendency is to use those methods. But whatever methods we use, they're all about changing the relationship of an individual to thoughts, feelings, memories, body responses. And that doesn't necessarily require going deeply, because now we have mindfulness-based techniques, so we can help people to notice the emotion, to notice the pain, to notice the fear in a mindful way rather than being swallowed up by it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And of course, now with, as you call it, this Godzilla running around out there,
Yeah.
there's plenty of opportunities to engage in that way now.
Well, the difficulty now is that there's a clear and present danger. But it's interesting. I did a remote session earlier today with a long-term client of mine, and she said, I seem to be the only person who isn't scared. And she said, I feel fear when I'm triggered. I don't feel fear of this virus or fear of what's going to happen to me. And that was interesting because she's in a high risk category. She's over 65. She has some pulmonary problems, so she's at risk. But as the traumatic memory, the fear memories, are much more intense for her than the fear of the virus.
Mm.
We're going to see other clients who are triggered by the virus, the sense that the world is going to end. Another email I got from a former client today said, it's going to be very hard to be around my husband and children all day, every day, because they trigger me. Because, children's emotional and attachment needs can be very triggering for parents.
Mm-hmm.
Spouses, right? This is the problem in marriage, is that we trigger each other. Mm-hmm. And that is going to be escalating because now we have marriages under the stress of fear,
Mm-hmm.
right? So
it's another opportunity for stress and trauma just by the very nature of being close together, of course,
absolutely.
potentially.
So yes. So I think there is, hopefully, this is the kind of situation that brings people together rather than tears them apart.
Mm-hmm.
And so hopefully that will be one of the silver linings, that it will increase the ability of families to be triggered by each other, but to feel the sense of needing and wanting each other and having a strong common ground. So it'll be easier to let go of some of the things that usually drive us crazy about our loved ones.
Well, open that up a little bit. Talk more about how people might deal with the stress of just being, with your spouse or with your kids more, more now. What are some ways we can manage and deal with that?
Well, I really believe that we have to normalize triggering. That it's a body thing. It's a somatic response. When we're exposed to some stimulus that the body perceives as threatening, doesn't have to be logically threatening, but something the body feels threatened by, we have a strong emotional or traumatic response. And then usually we interpret that in some way. We say, well, if he hadn't said blah, blah, I wouldn't be feeling this way. If my daughter hadn't gone in her room and slammed her door, I wouldn't be feeling this way. As opposed to, oh shit, I got triggered. And I always say to my clients, my wish for you is to someday be able to say, oh shit, I got triggered. And the oh shit is important because it's like saying, oh shit, I stepped in dog doo, right? Oh shit, I stubbed my toe. It's something that's uncomfortable, it's unpleasant, but it's normal.
Mm-hmm.
It's right. It isn't the end of the world. So hopefully, if the stress doesn't decrease our capacity to tolerate each other, which it doesn't seem to be doing, people
Mm-hmm.
seem to be kinder
Mm-hmm.
rather than more reactive.
Mm-hmm. Now, where are you right? Are you in Oakland?
Yes.
Okay. What's your perception of how people are kind of obeying, if you will, the shelter in place decree? Are people?
I'm sheltering in place, so I don't see a whole lot. But from what I see, if I open my door, the streets are deserted.
Yeah.
I came back. I was actually, where was I? I was on vacation in Mexico when this whole crisis started. And then I flew to Philadelphia to give a workshop, the last live event that I've given. And then I flew to New York, where I was supposed to teach 2 trainings that ended up online. And so I could see, especially in New York, I've never seen New York so deserted.
Really? Wow.
So few cars, so few taxis, so few people on the streets. When I finally got to the airport to fly home, the airport was empty. The plane was about a quarter full.
Wow.
There was no problem with social distancing because
Mm-hmm.
everybody on the plane had a row
Mm-hmm.
of their own. And so it's such a huge, it seems as if most people are respecting the the shelter in place or stay at home rules. But then my stepdaughter in New York texted me to say that she'd gone for a walk in the park and it was filled with people, including people coughing and sneezing.
Right.
So maybe people in New York especially are getting a bit stir-crazy. But hopefully, hopefully we'll be able, enough people will stay in that we can slow the spread of this virus.
So as we kind of close down here, what's next for you? I realize that might be difficult because you're always flying around, but as far as you can see, what are your next steps?
I mean, events are going online, like you did, many, many podcast series, many continuing ed event organizers are organizing shorter events online. I find myself very busy. But the other thing that I think is so important is for all of us to work with our bodies and to work on making sure that we're breathing, because anxiety interferes with breathing. And, to try to stay as grounded and centered as we can, because all around us are cues that are going to trigger fear.
Right.
So whether it's, my daughter-in-law is a great example. She says, we're going to cook our way through this crisis. So they're baking bread, they're baking everything. They're creating food. My other daughter-in-law said, if we have enough wine, we can get food.
Right.
So, and if we just did a family birthday party for my granddaughter online.
Oh, cool.
So we all sang her happy birthday remotely.
Awesome. Well, look, as we close out here, and before we close out, I just want to say you are such an inspiration, not just to me, but for a lot of people out there, Janina. I remember when I went through level 1, level 2 of Sensorimotor Psychotherapy training, you were one of the lead trainers and just amazing teacher. And I'm not just saying this because you're here, but, and then I was in that consultation group with you for a while and just incredible. Just so insightful. You're welcome. And just humorous. And you bring such a humanity to this field and a humor that I so respect. And I want to just say thank you.
Oh, you're so welcome. You're so welcome. And can I just say that in the midst of this crisis, I'm finishing my next book, which is called Transforming the Living Legacy of Trauma.
Oh, wow.
And I thought, this is one of those little silver linings, is that I have time to work on it while we're all sheltering.
Awesome. Well, we're all looking forward to that one. When's that due out?
So that's due out in the fall.
Oh, cool. All right. Yeah. Awesome. All right, Janina, I wish you well. Thank you.
Okay, I wish you well. I wish all of your viewers well. Thanks so much, Guy.
All right.